who jump greasers and wreck houses and throw beer blasts for kicks and get editorials in the paper for being a public disgrace one day and an asset to society the next. Greasers are almost like hoods. We steal things and drive old souped-up cars and hold up gas stations and have a gang fight once in a while. I don't mean I do things like that. Gary would kill me if I got into trouble with the police. Since Mom and Dad were killed in an auto wreck, the three of us get to stay together only as long as we behave. So Soda and I stay out of trouble as much as we can. And we're careful not to get caught when we can. I only mean that most greasers do things like that. Just like we wear our hair long and dress in blue jeans and t-shirts, or leave our shirt tails out and wear leather jackets and tennis shoes or boots. I'm not saying that either socias or greasers are better. That's just the way things are.
All right, we're going to stop there because I did skip over that when we were going through our review. So now you had an opportunity to read it. We're going to continue from there in just a second, but let's go ahead and move on. For the people back home, we stopped in the middle of page 3 at this point in the lesson. All right, so with your table, real quick, discuss what you already know about setting, conflict, and characters in this story. We've already talked about a few things at the beginning of class. Just talk about them again and remind yourself of these 3 things. Let me give you 90 seconds, 30 seconds for each spot. Go. What is setting?
Not the candidate community. Not yet.
30 seconds.
Finish.
Alright.
Come on.
The social, what else do we know about them so far? Popular website kids don't get so bad.
Oh my god, I didn't even get her. I got her hair. I didn't even get her face.
Social scenario really Alright, bring it back real quick in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. A few things I noticed. Let's see if you found the same things. In the setting, I learned that the town has 2 distinct social classes. We've talked about this already. Greasers, the poor, socias, the West Side rich. We also have a third class, the middle, but they're not really mentioned too much. But we do need to make sure that we recognize there is a third, just because they are existent and they're there. I can also tell because of work that it's in a different time or era, like we talked about the 1960s, because we got words like souped up cars, beer blasts, leather jackets, shirt tails. These all give me clues to the setting of the times. Yeah, we wouldn't use words like those today. We'd say beefed up, or what's a word for a beefed up car?
Beat up,
Okay, souped up.
racer.
Okay, maybe we would use the same thing, but these terms did originate during this time period, and we do get a feeling that it's not in our time. Conflict, what we've learned so far is that there is a major conflict between greasers and socias. This is a character versus society. Character versus society conflict. We also know that on page 3 at the top, we found out socias are held to a little bit of a different standard than the greasers are. We are guessing because they're richer, but we don't know for sure yet. But both of them like to drink and party. Both of them like to get in fights. Both of them either like to steal or hold up gas stations or assault other people from the other social group. Regardless, both groups do a lot of bad stuff. Correct?
Yeah.
They're both similar in that aspect. However, we saw a line in here that said socias will get praised for being an asset to society the next day, the day after they got in trouble. Yet, we also know dairy has to keep the greasers out of trouble because we can maybe infer that they probably won't get the same graciousness. in society? Maybe, because we would say probably, but maybe right now. We don't know for sure, okay? We also have a smaller conflict already established. Ponyboy versus Derry, his oldest brother. Now, even though Ponyboy loves Derry, sometimes he doesn't like Derry because his older brother Daryl, being 20, being the head of the family, has to protect and take care of everyone. Because of this, I think, and because of the pressure of being, he's still really young, he's only 20, and he's probably been doing it a while, he's maybe a little bit too aggressive, a little bit too over the top and too strict. But I would argue that that's probably a good overcompensation on Derry's part, even though Ponyboy may not like it. Would you guys agree?
Mm-hmm.
But we do have a little conflict between youngest brother and oldest brother. Does that sound like a realistic conflict?
Yes.
Yeah, of course it does. Right? So the only point here is that we're going to notice our little smaller conflicts as we go as well, because they do affect how things happen in the story as well, and what happens as well. Everybody good? Nod your heads and give me a thumbs up. Cool, moving on. Characters, we know that our character Ponyboy's poor. We know that the brothers are orphans, and that Ponyboy particularly is really, really aware of his social scenario. We talked about him accepting that he's a greaser, but we also learned a little bit about Ponyboy himself, that he's a little bit of an outsider, even in the greaser group. He likes books and movies. They don't. Or they don't like him as much as he does. They like fighting, getting in trouble. He really doesn't as much, right? But he does love his group like family. So we do know that. Physical traits, the boys have long, greasy hair. They wear jeans, leather jackets, boots, t-shirts, things like that. A little bit rougher side of town. We find a little bit about Derry, the oldest brother, and Soda, the second brother, who Ponyboy really loves. And we talked about the rest. Okay, so we've already talked about that. In your own book, in a second, let's go ahead and go into your notes real fast. Let's go into your notes. We're going to take some notes about the exposition really quickly. Now, what I'm going to say about this is that you do not need to have everything I have written down. Basically, all I'm doing right here is I'm going to make a couple sets of notes for the 3 parts of exposition, setting, character, and conflict. And I'm just going to write down a couple things that I've observed through page 3 so far. Does that make sense, everybody? So if you remember something I don't, or think something else is more important, write it down. Make sense? I'll give you a little template. But before we start, let's go back over our focus questions. We won't really run into them today, but I want to keep repeating them so that we get used to seeing them. How do perceptions lead to stereotyping and pressure to conform to your group, to other friends, to society? Different things there. Why is it important to recognize that all people have both positive and negative life experiences? We're not all good, we're not all bad. We're kind of something in the middle. Okay? What's loyalty? What's rivalry? And what does power mean? Those are going to be, reminders, those are our focuses as we go through the story. Now, if you notice at the top, I got my title, The Outsiders with Exposition, as the focus on today. I have my date in the upper right-hand corner. That's from Monday, so you can just add it as Monday for now. Setting is squared. That's my first subtopic. You can underline it, but whatever you do in your notes for your subtopics, make sure you do the same thing to them every time. Square them, circle them, cloud them, triangle them. I don't care. Just make sure all your subtitles are recognizable and formatted the same. That way you can navigate your own text features. Party? Party, 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 party. Perfect. All right, let's go. Setting is time, place, and social and cultural scenario. We should have that written down already, but let's go ahead and write the examples from the story. Time, 1960s. Place, small town in Southwest America. Time, 1960s. Place, town in small Southwest America. It's on page 11. We won't read that part, so I'm just going to give it to you. It actually says it's a town in the Southwest U.S. Now, setting is not just time and place. What else is it? Cultural and social scenario. So what is the cultural and social scenario, Lena? We talked about it at your table. Louder. The 2 rival gangs. We have the Upper West Side rich kids, the Socias. We have the East Side poor kids, the Those are your two social classes. Write them down. So what I made a note about, I have two rival social classes, greasers, socias, and I'm just going to take notes right here about what I know about them already. Okay? We're going to see some character traits. We're going to see some other things that we'll organize a little bit later. But right now, I just want to take note of what I know. Does that make sense? So anytime you guys get into your own books, the first couple pages are so crucial. You are flooded with so many details that if you don't take time to stop and notice them like we are right now, you don't have to take notes necessarily like we are now, but stop and notice them because you might miss something really, really important. We already know a ton about our book and we've read 2.5 pages of it. Okay? Look at how much we know right here. The greasers are the poor kids from the east side. That's what we know. Socias are the rich kids from the west side. Now, I know you can't see these details, so I'll say them out loud. We've already talked about them. The greasers, they like to drive souped-up cars. They like to steal from gas stations. They like to get in fights. They like to get boozed up and party. The socias like to jump greasers. They like to get boozed up and wreck houses. They do all this for fun. But there's one note that differentiates between those two. They both like to do a lot of the same things. But what's the difference between the two groups? Brandon.
The socias are get away with it.
The socias are allowed, seemingly for now, to get away with it because we heard that line on page 3 where it said they get praised or as an asset to society the next day. So it seems like the society yells at them, but doesn't ever slap their hand for it. You know what I mean? They get yelled at, but they don't really ever get punished.
Just gonna.
Yep, that's kind of how they get off. I also have some physical traits here. Greasers have long hair, jeans, t-shirts, boots, leather jackets. We didn't get any physical descriptions of the socias yet. It's not really necessary. All I'm doing is noticing the social scenarios. We're talking about characters, but this is still involved with the two social groups. Is everybody clear on that? We're still talking about setting with greasers and socias here. We're talking about the social dynamic of the town. Now, a neighboring town in Oklahoma or in Texas, would they have the same social scenario?
No. Nope.
Could they?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the likelihood?
Not really.
Not sure. Probably not going to be the same. Different people, different groups, different players, different social scenario. Jake, you with me? Nathan, you with me? Yeah.
What's
Okay.
the middle part?
I just can't.
That just says what they like to do from page 3. They like to drive souped up cars, wreck houses, beer blasts, things like that.
What are beer blocks?
Like parties.
Wow.
That's yeah. We've done setting now. Let's move on to conflict character. We know we've been introduced to 3 characters so far. Ponyboy, Dairy, and Soda. I just want you to list a few things down about them. I'm going to read them off really quickly right now. Ponyboy is our main character, also known as the protagonist. We're going to be going over that in a few lessons, but just go ahead and have it written down. Protagonist is the main character. Ponyboy is also our narrator and first-person point of view narrator. Why do you think I'm cupping my hands and yelling that?
It's important.
There you go. You're catching on. Dairy is the oldest brother. He's 20, 6'2", muscular. I'm going to give you those facts, have those written down because we're not going to read over them. We're going to skip that part. Dairy, 20 years old, 6'2", oldest brother, known as muscular. That's his physical traits. Soda, the middle brother, happy-go-lucky, super positive force of life, right? Everyone loves to be around Soda. Also a good-looking dude, ladies' man type of guy, but believes in romantic love. Yeah. Also, he really understands Ponyboy. We got that note on page 2 how Soda's the most important person in his life because he really understands Ponyboy. Have a couple things written down about Dairy, Soda, and Ponyboy. We can also write down one more thing about their social class. They are greasers. They're also, the 3 brothers are orphans. We get that little bitty detail that their parents died in a car crash. So we're going to note that. They're orphans. Is that going to make a difference on their behavior?
Yes. Yeah.
Probably. Is that going to make a difference on who's in charge?
Yes.
Definitely. Daddy, right? Instead of dad or mom. So it's even though it was only one sentence, it's a really important detail because it shows us how the relationships between the brothers affect each other. Nod your heads if this is making sense so far. Good. Yeah.
Was Derry like kind of a leader since he's bigger?
Yeah, that was my guess, and I think because he's also the oldest, so you can put he's kind of the leader. He's making sure everyone's staying out of trouble. You know what I mean? He's also the one that's keeping Pony Boy at home during school nights. He's kind of the one in charge, making the rules. Okay. If we've done setting and character, what's the third part of exposition we need to take observations on? Conflict. Let's move on. Conflict, again, notice I'm squaring it because it's, there it is. Do not write anything below this line right here. This is for today. This was supposed to be lesson 2. We'll do it tomorrow. Okay? Conflict. We got one major conflict. Character versus society. The only thing you really need to have written down are what's our character versus society conflict? Blank versus blank. Greasers versus? That's all you need to have written down. I just made a note here that the socias are held to a different standard, but we've already chatted about that a little bit. But if you want to note it, you can. I also have a smaller conflict that we noticed earlier from my slides. Derry and Pony Boy have a little tension going on. Oldest brother to youngest brother. Love each other, but because of how they act with each other, Derry being in charge and acting really strict and stern, and a little maybe too aggressive with Pony Boy sometimes, they don't like Pony Boy may not like Derry all the time, but he does sure as heck love him. Okay? But there is a conflict there. And we talked about this. Oldest brother, youngest brother. Does that make sense that there's a conflict there? Between brothers?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a younger brother. That's kind of how it goes all the time. Okay. Hey, by the way, if you have a brother who treats you like this, or you're the older brother or sister that treats your younger siblings like this, that's a text to self-connection. See how that works?
I have
All right, here is your exit ticket for the day. It is 6th hour, and we got about, it's 6th hour, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we got a lot of time. I want to maybe see if we can get this done and maybe introduce tomorrow's lesson. Okay, so here's what I'd like you to do. What we just did is we only read 2.5 pages. I would like to listen to the remaining parts of the chapter so you can hear what happened after that. So let's do this exit ticket quick. What I'd like you to do is go back to the first few pages in your own book, your challenge book. And I'd like you to do the same thing we just did in your notes. This is your exit, but it's not going to be an exit slip that you hand in. It's just going to be something I look at when I get your reader responses and things like that, okay? Here's what I'd like you to do. Do the same thing we just did. Go through the first few pages of your own book. If you're at the beginning, perfect. If you're a little bit through it, go back to the first few pages and just remember what you already know and skim and scan. But I want you to take notes on the setting, which is the time, the place, and the what else?
Conflict.
The setting is time, place, and the social scenario. All right, now that you know what it is, say it with me. Setting is time, place, and okay, I want you to take note of your own book and see if you notice any social norms between the groups of people in there. Are there any certain rules that they have to abide by? Are there certain groups that are against each other, like in The Outsiders? Is there certain expectations at the school, in the town, in the group of friends that have to be held to? See what you can notice about that today, okay? Next, take some observations about characters and character traits. Have just give me 2 or 3 main characters with a couple character traits that you've observed. And then tell me where the main conflict was observed and what the main conflict is. You guys good with that? Here's a couple ways you can do it. You can do it with a 3-column chart. You can do it with a web diagram if you'd like to. Or you can do it with the linear notes. This is the more traditional, boring way, but I like doing mine this way a lot of times. I also like this a lot. I also do this a lot because this is way more visual. So if you are a visual learner, go with this one. Cool? I'm going to give you, can we do this in 8 minutes? 8 minutes, starting now. Go. If you have questions, I'll come around and coach.
This is very
Cool. Tell me what you know about it so far. Tell me what you know about it so far. Do you want this screen up or the exit ticket screen?
Extra ticket.
Who wants this one up? All right, I'm gonna leave this up and then I'm gonna change it in like a minute. Is that okay? Good compromise? Figure out which notes you want to take and then I'm gonna switch it back. You're looking for the exposition, the character, character setting and conflicts. Yep.
So maybe just tell me what you do know so far and then skim ahead until you find out more. Okay, you got a few minutes to do so.
Is anybody not okay with me bringing the camera around and showing their examples on their paper? Cool. I'm gonna do that in a minute after I get some, give you some time.
Yeah, but so you don't have to have a character versus society conflict. You have social scenario. So like, what's the time of it? Okay, so that's already telling us some clues that we need. We already know that the rules are the same as they are now, right? So what are some rules or structures of how things work in this world? Okay. So upper class, lower class. How many people are in the upper class? Very few. People are in the lower class. A lot.
Okay, then you'd be like, because you're not
Does the upper class like the lower class? Does the lower class like the upper class? Yeah.
that we're done.
Everything that you're talking about is
So time doesn't need to be a year or an actual time. It could just be middle school. You know what I mean? Like kids are in middle school, so the time could be like in reference to how old they are. Does that make sense? It could also be, we could also say it's close to present day. Time really isn't that probably much of a factor in that book, so just say close to present day. The place and the social scenario in a book about schools and kids that have a lot of social groups, the time really isn't going to be a big factor in setting the place and the social scenario are. Okay?
I did it on my 13th birthday.
Alright.
That was sort of last year.
Yes.
Yep, and the social scenario is what?
So young.
How does that change things? Changed everything, right? Changed the way we go about how we do things, about how we travel, and things like that.
I went with my dad. I know how long.
You have 3.5 minutes. You need help with my attention. I'll be right back.
It's
Oh, it's right. It's fine.
oh. I don't know my mother wants to do this.
My dad got out of jail, but it's a year.
Yeah, but are they affecting the story?
Well, yours is worse.
If they are, you mentioned. I think does he have his own set?
Alcohol when she was pregnant? No.
By the way, does anybody want a notice and note signpost bookmark with all the signposts on them for fiction and for nonfiction? I'm only going to give you one. I can't give you more than that, but it will definitely help you, so don't lose it, please. There is a space to keep your note, name on it. How many here? Put your names on them. How many here? 3. Oh, all of us here.
Stairs and she said 5.
Alright, here, what's up?
I think she forget, but I always
Hey,
remember.
how are you doing, most body? Where's your question?
I don't know.
Okay, maybe make a prediction what you think it's gonna be. Bookmarks. Oh, really? Bookmarks?
Oh my. I was handing you this one. Oh, right. No. Bring my book tomorrow. You need to be texting that.
You have a minute, 37 seconds to finish your notes.
Well, I mean, it's not really important. That's better on
All right, give me a thumbs up real quick. We gotta listen, please. Give me a thumbs up if you got some notes on the time. Thumbs up if you have notes on the time, the place, social scenario. Did you notice anything about the social scenario? If you're not sure, you need to get my attention. How many have notes on the characters?
There are.
How many have notes on the conflicts? Let's focus on the social scenario of the setting in the last minute. Here we go. Any questions?
In your book, I don't know. Okay, which question are they?
Like in this book, there's like no characters.
Okay, that's fine. You just probably just say. Yeah. So, and what about the social setting? What are some of the rules? How are the people interacting with each other?
What have you noticed about how different groups of characters treat each other? What have you noticed about how different groups of characters interact with each other? What have you noticed about how different groups of characters think about, talk to, or behave around each other? That's what you're looking for. Take 30 more seconds. This should all be in your notes right after your outsider stuff. When you're ready, go ahead and get back to page 3. You may finish your notes, but I'm going to continue from page 3 so you can hear what happens next.
And greenish gray eyes. Who would have gone with me or driven me there?
Ponies welcome to the movies
Although some
by
just
himself.
can't sit still long enough to enjoy a movie and they bore Darry to death. Darry thinks his life is enough without inspecting other people's. Or I could have gotten one of the gang to come along. One of the 4 boys Darry and Soda and I have grown up with and consider family, but just don't use my head. It drives my brother Darry nuts when I do stuff like that. Because I'm supposed to be smart. I make good grades and have a high IQ and everything, but I don't use my head. Besides, I like walking.
Paragraph 2, page 4.
I about decided I didn't like it so much, though, when I spotted that red Corvair trailing me. I was almost 2 blocks from home then, so I started walking a little faster. I remember Johnny, his face all cut up and bruised, and I remember how he had cried when he found me, half conscious in the corner locked. Johnny had it awful enough for a pop bottle or a stick or something.
Okay, so this car's just pulled up on him. He's thinking back to when Johnny got the junk kicked out of him, and he's getting a little nervous. He says, I was sweating something fierce, although I was cold. I could feel my palms getting clammy and perspiration running down my back. He remembers Steve Randall's Soda's buddy, his brother's buddy, who held off 4 Sodas with a pop bottle.
Steve Randall, Soda's best buddy, had once held off 4 guys with a busted pop bottle. But there was nothing. So I stood there like a bump on a log while they surrounded me. I don't use my head. They walked around slowly, silently, smiling. Hey, Grease,
Top 5.
one said in an over-friendly voice. We're gonna do you a favor, Greaser. We're gonna cut all that long, greasy hair off. He had on a Madras shirt. I can still see it. Blue Madras. One of them laughed, then cussed me out in a low voice. I couldn't think of anything to say. There just isn't a whole lot you can say while waiting to get mugged, so I kept my mouth shut. Need a haircut, Greaser? The medium-sized blonde pulled a knife out of his back pocket and flipped the blade open. I finally thought of something to say. No. I was backing up, away from that knife. Of course, I backed right into one of them. They had me down in a second. They had my arms and legs pinned down, and one of them was sitting on my chest with his knees on my elbows. And if you don't think that hurts, you're crazy. I could smell English leather shaving lotion and stale tobacco, and I wondered foolishly if I would suffocate before they did anything.
I was scared so badly I was wishing I would. I fight to get loose, and almost did for a second. Then they tightened up on me, and the one on my chest slugged me a couple times. So I lay still, swearing at them in between gasps. A blade was held against my throat. How'd you like that haircut to begin just below the chin? It occurred to me that they could kill me. It occurred to me then that they could kill me. I went wild. I started screaming for soda, dairy, anyone. Someone put his hand over my mouth and I bit it as hard as I could, tasting the blood running through my teeth. I heard a muttered curse and got slugged again, and they were stuffing a handkerchief in my mouth. One of them kept saying, "Shut him up, for Pete's sake, shut him up." Then there were shouts and the pounding of feet, and the socials jumped up and left me lying there gasping. I lay there and wondered what in the world was happening. People were jumping over me and running by me, and I was too dazed to figure it out. And someone had me under the armpits and was hauling me to my feet. It was Derry. "Are you all right, pony boy?" I'm gonna stop there for today. Greasers end up coming in and stopping the socials, and they run them off. We're gonna skip ahead tomorrow to page 12. The next few pages, if you'd like to read them or listen to the video at home, you may do so. Optional tonight, listen to chapter 1. It's only gonna help out. Thanks for today. We'll see you tomorrow. Put your books back in the caddy, push your chairs in, make sure my tables are organized and tidy. Make sure we got 5 or 4 books in each of the compartments. You guys only had 1, right?
Yeah, we